Hello everyone, and welcome back to trigonometry triangles. So I found this animator of the unit circle. We were kind of looking at this yesterday. The right angle is down here along the x-axis, and theta is over here right now. Theta is 30.35. And because the red line is 1 unit, always 1 unit long, the ratios, like the opposite of the hypotenuse, are always the opposite over 1. So it's just whatever the opposite is. Well, the opposite is also the height of this arm, which is a y distance measured on the y-axis, which is 0.5 right now. Or if you look here, 0.51. And the cosine is the adjacent over 1, so it's just the adjacent, which we can just measure along the x-axis, which looks like it's like 0.85. And it says here it's 0.86, exactly. So as you slide along the unit circle, staying 1 unit from the origin always. Now theta changes, theta is 56. And our x and y values have changed, and thus our cosine and sine values have changed. Now, in this first quadrant are all the right triangles you could calculate before in geometry. But as soon as we pass over the y-axis, we are now in a new territory. And that is because theta is now bigger than any triangle could handle, any right triangle, 117.93 degrees. And our right triangle is now over here. Our right angle is now over here along the x-axis. So it's kind of flipped over. We still have a right triangle. We still have an opposite. We still have an adjacent. We still have... But the funny thing is the theta is not even in the triangle anymore. So that's funny. But it allows us to have a definition for an output when theta is 149.2. The sine is 0.51. That's the height, the y height of the dot. And cosine is now actually a negative number because from the origin, the green line goes backwards 0.86. Okay, so now we have outputs for thetas bigger than 90, and for 90, when there is no right triangle is gone, and yet there's still a definition because the dot is 1 unit high, so the y is 1, so that means sine of 90 is 1, and it has no left or right distance, so that means sine of 90 is 0. X is 0, y is 1. And then in this quadrant, sine is positive and cosine is negative. When we get down to here, sine is not the triangle flips again. The right angle's here. The triangle's now down here. But anyway, sine is negative, cosine is negative. And theta is now 243 degrees. And when we swing all around to here, the triangle flips again. So you can see, I'll just rock it back and forth a little bit. The right angle's on the left. Now the right angle's on the right. Red is always 1 unit long. Now cosine is positive. You can see, well, the x distance there, look, if you look at the x-axis, the green line goes out to 0.6 or whatever. And the blue line, though, is going down. The y value is negative. So sine is negative in this quadrant. For theta's greater than 270, less than 360. Now, technically, you can go past 360. This animator doesn't do it, but you can swing around past 360, but the answers start repeating themselves. And that's why you get a sine wave that just goes back and up and down and up and down and up and down, because it's doing the same thing over and over as you go around and around and around and around and around. Now, what I want you to watch is the blue line on the y-axis is tall, and then short, and then negative short, and then long. Watch that blue line on the y-axis. Up and down, up and down, and up and down, and up and down. And now look at the green line on the x-axis. Long and shorter, and then negatively short, and then long, and then negative short, and then long. And green is back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. Okay, that's what sine waves are. If we jump in this other program down here, you can see those get plotted. Don't crash, don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. Back and forth and back and forth. So P and Q are the outputs of sine and cosine. So just like before, the blue line, if I start here, now they're double using that origin axis to also plot the outputs of the x and y. So blue is longer and longer and longer and longer and longer, and blue is shorter and shorter and shorter, and blue is negative, 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 negative 1, then back down, negative, negative, back to 0. And it would just repeat on and on. Cosine is doing the same thing. So cosine and sine actually are the same shape, but because they're both doing the same thing, long and then short, and then long and then short, but they're offset by a half cycle, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, great, very good. Hope that was worth it.